Welcome to the weekly conversations with Ashok Malik. Today we are going to discuss about is BJP returning to Hindutva, then Narendra Modi's speech at SRCC Delhi North Campus, and then does Narendra Modi need ultra-right activists like Pravin Togadia? Ashok, to begin with, we saw the BJP President Rajnath Singh going to Kumbh and then raising again as they're subsequently going to this RSS VHP program and mentioning that the Ram temple continues to be the issue for BJP. Does BJP use Ram Mandir issue, Ram temple issue just because during the election times, or do you think there is a revival of this particular agenda?
See, Kunal, there are several questions you're asking. One, Mr. Rajnath Singh or anybody else going to the Kumbh or to any religious event is hardly news. Mrs. Sonia Gandhi went to the Kumbh in 2001. I was there that day, I remember. She met Shankaracharya of Dwarka, who's seen as close to the Congress. There are other religious leaders who are seen as close to other parties like the BJP. A lot of leaders have gone to the Kumbh, political leaders have gone to the Kumbh this time, so has Mulayam Singh Yadav. I understand Mrs. Gandhi may be planning to go again. So if Mr. Singh has gone, there's nothing wrong with that. Coming to the Ram temple issue, again, let's break down what Mr. Singh has said. He said that the Ram temple issue continues to be an important issue, not the issue. Okay. It's an important issue. And he's also added in Chennai yesterday that there is a court case happening. So I frankly can't see how the Ram temple issue can become an election issue in 2014. There are two reasons for this. One, the mood in the country is not for those issues anymore. The mood in the country is for very different issues today. Aspirations, the state of the economy growing at 5%, the sense of despondency among youth, which are related to bread and butter issues rather than to identity issues. Second, I'm a little perplexed as to what exactly will be, even if somebody wants a political campaign on the Ram Mandir issue, what will the demand be? Till the 90s, early 90s or before 92, the demand could have been that there is a structure there which we consider should be actually a temple, but is actually a mosque or whatever it is, so get rid of it. But what can the demand be today? Because there is a court case happening. The title suit went to the High Court. The High Court in 2010 came up with a judgment, which to a lot of people seemed a fair judgment because it allowed both sides to walk away with dignity. There are people who don't like the judgment. They've gone to the Supreme Court, which is fine. At some point, the Supreme Court will decide. When it decides, its final verdict will need to be implemented by politicians and by the government of the day. At that point, some people will be happy, some people will be unhappy. And a political call will have to be taken then. But that is a long time away. That is well beyond 2014. And I think all politicians recognize that. So I really don't see the Ram temple issue or Ayodhya becoming a big election issue in 2014.
But what about the issue of Hindutva? I mean, is the identity politics returning?
You know, identity politics never goes away anywhere in the world, but it returns in different ways with different labels at different junctures. You can't impose identity politics on a populace or an electorate that is not interested in it. And I think all political parties recognize that. This is not the election for Hindutva or Islamism or whatever it is. It is very much a bread and butter issues election. It is, if you've seen the outpouring of youth on the streets of one issue or another, the rape on December 16th, Anna Hazare corruption earlier, there is a sense that the economy has lost direction, jobs are not happening, not being created, and there is a sense of despondency and a sense that the UPA has lost its way. Now, whether this is correct or not is immaterial. I don't know. People will decide in 2014. But the BJP obviously hopes to exploit this sentiment. And that would be legitimate and logical. And the Congress, of course, hopes to fight this sentiment, which would also be logical. I don't think the BJP is going to gain much by what some people call the return to Hindutva. And I think whatever you say about our politicians, they're very clever individuals. I can't see the BJP rushing towards an agenda which nobody's buying, frankly, which is why I'm a little perplexed by these news reports.
But tell me, interestingly, the media has covered extensively when yesterday Mr. Mohan Bhagwat spoke, and before that even Pravin Togadia's speeches. Of course, we can't bracket both of them together, but in terms of these non-political groups, non-political, we may even call them quasi-political groups in that sense.
Yeah, they are quasi-political.
Yeah. So, do you think there is an assertion within by these groups on BJP, because we all know directly or indirectly they influence each other?
Religious groups and religious and social organizations and all pressure groups play a role in politics all over the world. In Kerala, the last time we saw a section of the church seeking votes for the Congress. Various Muslim organizations are courted by one party or the other before elections. Hindu groups are also courted. There was, in fact, an alliance between the Hindu groups and sections of the CPM in Kerala last time. And of course, the Sangh Parivar and the VHP have traditionally been close to the BJP. Now, there is nothing intrinsically wrong with a religious figure or religious group seeking to influence politics. They are citizens like anybody else, they have a right to. They have a voice and they should have a voice. They shouldn't have a veto, because it is important for the autonomy of a political entity, which takes a call on the basis of not just religious factors or identity issues, but broader factors. It is important for that autonomy to be protected for the future and the appeal of that political entity to a broader audience. I think the BJP has to be mindful of that. If it takes a decision on its next leader or prime ministerial candidate, it should take it because it believes it is the best decision, not because somebody wants it or doesn't want it. So, I think rather than get excited every time Mr. Mohan Bhagwat says something, whether negative or positive, I think the BJP needs to come up, like all political parties, needs to come up with a structured internal system of decision making. If Modi is the most popular leader in the BJP, for instance, then it should be reflected in an internal election rather than with 7 or 8 people saying it. Because that would be the correct way to arrive at a decision. Even if the decision is reached correctly, even if the decision is the correct one, it's also important that the process by which you reach it is also correct.
Ashok, how do you read into Mr. Narendra Modi's speech at SRCC a few days back? For many people, it sounded almost prime ministerial, sort of putting ahead his candidature as a prime minister across to youth of India.
I think this was a speech that was obviously reaching out to more than just 1800 students of Sri Ram College, Delhi. It was reaching out to a pan-Indian middle-class audience. It was reaching out to young India. Because what we tend to forget is that everyone talks about the demographic dividend and how whatever 65% of India is under 25 or under 35 or whatever, under 35. Now, that's all very well theoretically or in textbooks or newspaper articles, but it actually makes our elections and our politics very, very unpredictable, because this means that the impatience of youth is something every government and every party has to address. The UP is facing the music this time. Tomorrow it could be somebody else. I think Modi recognizes that and was making an appeal directly to young India and saying, aren't you worried about your future? And he was mirroring a lot of their fears and anxieties.
Absolutely.
So in that sense, it was very clever positioning. He was also talking to the audience rather than talking down to them. It was almost like a conversation. And whether you agree with him or disagree with him or otherwise, what I did notice was it was an old-fashioned mode of political communication, where you chat with the audience, you crack a joke,
and very informal in many sense. I mean, the same day Mr. Chidambaram gave a speech at IDSA, and his speech was full of statistics and figures
Well,
and
to
all.
be fair, Mr. Chidambaram was speaking on Indian internal security at a lecture.
Huh.
It was not a public meeting. So it's different, and he's a minister. Let's be fair. But you have hit upon an important point. You see, for those of us who've been following politics for many years, there was a time when Modi is a very good orator, no question. But there was a time when there were several people like this, not just good speakers, but people who connected with the audience, connected with, and you still see it with a lot of regional leaders, or even within the Congress, national leaders who in their states connect with their voters, their people. Whether they end up winning elections or not is another matter. Now, he was reaching out to an audience of college students who have been following politics for what, about 10 years, I presume, because if they're about 20 now, they would have been 10 when they first woke up to the idea of politics. In these past 10 years, what's the idea of political communication been? A Manmohan Singh who frankly doesn't speak much, a Sonia Gandhi who doesn't speak much, a Rahul Gandhi who doesn't speak at all. You have that model of the silent leader, or you have television debates where people shout at each other and come up with clever sound bites, trying to appear smarter than the next guy. Old-fashioned political communication has been lost. And this generation, especially in big cities like Delhi, has not seen it. In a smaller town or village, you may just see it because somebody comes to you, a regional leader comes to meet you. But in big cities, in a place like SRCC or whatever, big college in Delhi or Bombay, you just don't see it anymore.
What is it about Mr. Modi? It's not specifically the vision, because he's not saying anything new. Whatever he says perhaps has been said before.
See, I don't think the Congress has lost the art of political communication. The Congress still comprises some extremely astute, adept and clever politicians. It's just that there is a strange coincidence that the Congress has a Prime Minister, a President and a Vice President, all three of whom are actually shy individuals. And there's nothing wrong with being a shy individual, but in politics it helps if you're not shy. That's life. You know, it's, and when all three are shy and all three sort of don't come out in public and communicate in any form, whether by television interviews, public meetings, articles, blogs, whatever, some form of communication, it becomes a problem. And when the top three don't communicate, number 4, 5 and 6 can't suddenly start communicating. That is the problem the Congress is facing. Because there are a number of people in the Congress who can communicate, but who are holding back, because if 1, 2, 3 are not communicating, how can 7, 8 and 9 communicate?
True.
As for Mr. Modi, the Congress quite correctly sees him as its biggest potential challenger in 2014. And that would be a fair assessment for them to make. So, if I were them, I'd attack him as well.
Does Narendra Modi really need ultra-right activists like Pravin Togadia? Because, I mean, does he really need the endorsement?
I don't know whether Pravin Togadia will eventually endorse Modi, because his chemistry with Modi is very bad.
Okay.
He's been instrumental in leading a rebellion within the BJP in Gujarat with Kesubhai Patel.
Okay.
Against Modi. Modi and he don't get along. Modi has made him irrelevant in Gujarat. Modi recognized, from what I understand, that for individually for him, politically for the BJP and socially for Gujarat, perhaps, those sort of toxic forces that did what they did in 2002 needed to be sort of overcome, and everyone needed to outgrow them. He has accomplished that. Now, some people say that's not enough, some people say it is. That's a separate debate, but that is what he has set out to do. And in a sense, Togadia and his politics have been left behind. India has also moved on. Togadia really seems, in his language, as the language of Mr. Owaisi, who he was reacting to, seem a little out of place in today's discourse. I'm sure they have fringe appeal among Hindus, or in the case of OIC against some fringe Muslims, but I don't think it's a mainstream opinion, and I don't think it's going to be a decisive theme in 2014 in an election. So I think these are fringe elements who have more media presence than political presence.
One last question, Ashok, is you mentioned how the identity issue perhaps would not be as relevant in 2014. Similarly, would 2002 be relevant in 2014?
Yes, it would, because while the SIT seems to have cleared Mr. Modi of personal culpability, and of course we need to wait for the Supreme Court and the High Court to validate that. We can't decide on. Even if one takes that position, the fact is he was Chief Minister when that act of violence happened. And it is something his opponents will use against him, and justifiably so. Among minorities, particularly Muslims outside Gujarat, Mr. Modi remains a very negative figure, and the Congress would seek to exploit that. Again, it would be perfectly sensible politics on their part to do it. So, Mr. Modi's opponents will use 2002, much as he would not want to use 2002, and he would want to use his achievements after 2002. But yes, 2002 will come back in the election. It will be there.
But will he try to sideline the issue more?
Well, obviously he will. But let me put it this way: it's a question of whether you will vote against Mr. Modi of 2002, or whether you will vote against the UPA of 2014. Okay. Now I don't know. I'm not India. I can't decide for a billion people. But if the economy has still been growing at 8%, if Manmohan Singh spoke to people, explained his ideas, and appeared authoritative, if the Congress hadn't betrayed the mandate of 2009, they won a very good mandate. If corruption wasn't as much of an issue as it has become, if the price of milk hadn't doubled in 5 years, if food price inflation was tolerable, if the economy was still bullish and hopeful and people were confident of jobs and education for their children, Mr. Modi would have been a non-entity today. If Mr. Modi is back in relevance, 2002 or no 2002, the UPA has to be thanked.
Thanks a lot thanks a lot, Ashok, for speaking to us. So next week again we'll catch up with Ashok to understand the week's political development. Thank you for watching.